Hey everybody, today we're practicing using SPSS to analyze data for research purposes. This video is following the class with Dr. Mora from the University of Barcelona in Intro to Statistics. However, if you're watching this video and you're not in that class, hopefully some of the information will still be valuable, and I'll try to explain everything in enough detail that it will still make sense, but some things are just going to be specific to that class. So we're going to start with that, which is where our data comes from. So you can go to the University of Barcelona virtual campus and click on your course menu. In the Introduction to Applied Statistics, you're going to find this area called Data Sources. What we're using today is Flankers 0. So we can download that. And then let's go to SPSS. And we're going to click on File, Open, Data. And for me, it's not showing up. That's just because I have to change the files of type to include Excel. Click down here, and there it is. So click OK and Open. So if you're not from that class, I'll just explain briefly. The Flankers test is a selective attention test, basically. So participants are shown one of 4 images, and they're told to identify which direction the middle arrow is pointing. So sometimes the middle arrow is pointing the same direction as all of the other arrows. Sometimes it's pointing in a different direction. So we expect these images to take longer to correctly identify. And so we're going to see what the difference is between the congruent and the incongruent images and how that affects their response time. So we have 3 columns, 3 variables so far, which is the subject. I'm not sure how many subjects we've got. I think it's a lot, actually. Trial, so each person identified 80 images, 20 were left and incongruent, 20 were left and congruent, and then the other 40 were right and congruent or incongruent. Now we have their response time in milliseconds. Now some people, the response time looked different when they opened this file. Let's say it looked something like this, with just a lot of extra zeros after the values. So to change that, we can click on Variable View, find Response Time here, and go to Decimals, and that's going to tell us how many values after the decimal it shows. We can change that to 2, because that's how much was measured, and then go back to Data View, and it should look like that, which is a lot easier to look at. So some of the response times are going to have negative values, and that's because the answer was incorrect. And so we also want to know whether the congruency affected their ability to correctly identify which direction the arrow was pointing. So let's make that a variable as well. To do that, we're going to click on Transform and Recode into different variables. And it's going to open up this dialog box. So we can put in an input variable, which is one that we already have, and an output variable, which is the new one that we're making. Our input variable will be the response time, or RT. We can click that over, or you can drag and drop it over too. Our output variable is going to be the accuracy. Were they correct or incorrect? We can call that ACC. Click Change, and that'll put that as our output variable here. Now, for our old and new values, we have the button here that's going to open this dialog box. The old values, we have a number of ways built in for selecting the old value. So we want the negative numbers. So if we look down here, we'll see one that says range, lowest through value. So if we put that value as 0, anything below 0 is going to be selected. And so that'll get all of our negative numbers. The new value is what's going to be displayed in the accuracy column. You can put that as 0 to tell us that all of those were incorrect responses. Let's click Add. Now we want all of the positive numbers to have a value of 1 to show that they were correct. One way we can do that is range value through highest. Put that as 0, so anything above 0. And let's give the value 1 to tell us that it's accurate. We can click OK, Continue, and then OK. And it's going to open up this box that shows the code. We can click behind that. You see we've got a new variable. It's accuracy. And it's going to be 1 for all of the positive responses and 0 for all of the negative responses. Let's change the decimals on that as well. Let's click Variable View, decimals 0, back to Data View. That's going to look nicer. One other thing we can do while we're in Variable View is look at the measure. So measure, there's 3 options. There's scale, ordinal, and nominal. So correct or incorrect, it's just, it's a nominal value, so that's good there. Actually, subject and trial should also be nominal. Let's go ahead and change those while we're here. Now let's go back to Data View. So we also want to know the response times with those negative numbers filtered out. So to do that, we can create a response time screened variable. Let's click on Transform, recode into different variables, same as last time. Now let's click Reset. Reset's going to clear this dialog box. It's not going to change anything on your data though. Now we can put in the response time as our input variable. Let's call this one RT_SCR to let us know that it's the screened response time. Click Change, old and new values. So again, we want to select all of those negative values. So range lowest through value 0. Now this time, we're going to click System Missing as the new value. So that's just going to leave all of those cells blank if there was a negative value in the initial response time. Click Add. Now, another way we can get all of the positive values, we've already selected all of the negative values, so we can choose this option, All Other Values. For this one, we want to know the response time in milliseconds in our new value, so we're going to click Copy the old values, Add, Continue, OK. This will pop up again. Let's click on this, and voila. We'll see if there was a positive value, it just copy and pasted into this new variable. But if there was a negative value, it left it blank. So this is what we're going to use when we're calculating means because it has those negative numbers filtered out. Now the other variables we want to create are ones that let us know whether the image was left-facing, right-facing, and congruent or incongruent. So let's do direction first. So same as before, transform, recode into different variables, reset. Now this is going to be based on what the trial number was. So let's bring that in as our input variable. The output variable is direction change. Let's click on old and new values. So the trials 1 through 40 were all left-facing. Or sorry, I think they were all right-facing. 1 through 40 were all right-facing. Let's give it a value of 1. Click OK. Click Add. Oh yeah, and we're using the range function this time. And then 41 through 80 were all the other direction, whichever it was. Let's call it 2. And click Add. Click Continue. Click OK. And now we've got another variable here to tell us whether the image was left or right-facing for the center arrow. And finally, let's create one more to let us know if it was congruent or incongruent. Transform, recode into different variables, reset. Again, that we know from the trial number, so let's bring that over. This we'll call congruency, change old and new values. So let's use range again, because 1 through 20 were all congruent. We'll give that a value of 1 and click Add. Oh wait, 1 through 29? No! All right, 1 through 20, value 1, Add. 21 through 40 were all incongruent. Let's give that a value of 0, Add. Now 41 through 60 were all congruent, so those will also have a value of 1, and 61 through 80 were all incongruent, so they'll also have a value of 0, Add. And you should have that in your box. Click Continue, click OK, and then we can click Past, and now we've got direction and congruency as variables too. Now before we do anything else, let's click on Variable View. Let's put those decimals at 0 for direction and congruency too. And one more thing we'll do in this video is name those values. So, for example, with accuracy, we put 0 as our value for incorrect responses, and 1 is our value for correct responses. Now, if we look at the values column, none of these values have names yet. The names are useful for when we make the charts because it's going to be what's displayed on the chart. So let's click on accuracy values and click on this ... So you remember the value of 0 was incorrect responses. So let's tab into that label section, put in incorrect. We'll click add. The ones that we gave a value of 1 were correct responses. So we'll put that as the label and click add and OK. So now we'll have a labeled chart when we make one of those. Let's do the same thing with direction. So I think the values of 1 were all left facing. We'll give that the label, or no, I think they were right facing. Give that the label right and click add. The ones with the value of 2 were left facing. Give that the value left, click add. Okay. And then for congruency, we gave a value of 0 to the incongruent images, click add, and a value of 1 to the congruent images, and click add. Okay. So now we have all of the data properly labeled, and we've created the new variables like we did in class. The next thing we'll look at is how to create charts using this data. I'll do that in another video, just so these videos don't get too terribly long though. And yeah, I know in class it can sometimes be difficult to keep up with everything going at such a fast pace. So while using these videos, if you are, feel free to pause, go back as necessary. Thank y'all. I'll see you soon.